Well, hello there. This has been a very good month for reading, and I am super excited to do this June wrap up. I thought that this month was terrible. I was on vacation this month. I DNF'd 3 books. I thought I had barely read anything this month, but that was not the case. I ended up reading 11 books, and thanks to finding a new favorite series and June on the Range, quite a few more books than I expected. I'm just going to go in chronological order, and this is going to include the stuff I read for June on the Range. And the first thing I read was Destry Rides Again by Max Brand, and it was pretty good. I mean, it doesn't read like something that was published in 1930. I thought that was crazy. Max Brand is a little more timeless than you would expect. Now, I ended up reading this because it's like one of the Westerns you read. So this being my first June on the Range, I was like, well, let's go with what people really expect you to read. So I got that. And then also this month, I decided to start Red Rising by Pierce Brown. And that was the second book I read this month. And holy crap, I loved it. I know like a lot of people think it's derivative, which it is, but it's like derivative in a good way. And I read the entire trilogy. Like the next book I read was Golden Sun. And then the book after that was Morning Star. So the series is amazing. I loved it. I think I'm going to make like a review for it. I read Last Stand at Papago Wells by Louis L'Amour. This was part of my June on the Range. It was one of the books I showed off a while back in a book haul video, and it's just one of those fancy leather-bound ones, and it's a very short book. Now, the interesting thing about Last Stand at Papago Wells, or Papago Wells, or Papago Wells, whatever they say, is that it reads like a D&D adventure. I'm seriously debating turning it into an adventure for something like Dungeon Crawl Classics, or actually it's perfect for Dungeon Crawl Classics. It would be the ultimate level 0 player funnel for DCC. So the premise of the story is all these different characters are out in the desert and something happens to them, like a disaster of some kind, and they all end up meeting up at Papago Wells or Papago Wells. I'm not going to correct myself anymore. I don't know what it is, so I'm just going to say how I say it. And so you have this like Southern beau and his fiance that he basically like snatched from her dad. Like he wooed her and then she ran away with him. And then you've got this like hard ass like desert man whose horse is dead, and then like another group that's got like a Native American with them who hates the Native Americans that are like attacking these people at this watering hole, because this is like the only watering hole for like a day, and it's kind of off the beaten path because it's not one of the watering holes usually used. So they're essentially holding out day after day from being attacked by these natives, and they are just trying to survive. And there's all these interpersonal like conflicts and nobody gets along. And I think not only would it be great for like a role-playing experience, it would be a really good way to whittle down characters with these little attacks and having them try to break out and all sorts of really cool stuff. And there's like this mysterious woman that's got like this big heavy sack, and people are like, that's gold, we gotta steal it. And it's just really good. So I could definitely recommend that one. It was a lot of fun. It was so fun that I moved right on to Hondo by Louis L'Amour. And Hondo is also good, but some parts of it were just like kind of boring. And I think that a lot of that is Louis L'Amour seems to add way too many characters to a book that is that short. When the book is 165 pages and I'm reading 50 pages of just like character development of too many characters, like none of them are going to have enough time in the spotlight. And it was just like really annoying. Like Papago Wells kind of suffered from that, but it was fun. Hondo's fun too, but he should have spent either less time developing these characters or wrote bigger books. I really, really want to get back into not only nonfiction, but rereading things that I've read in the past. So I decided to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and I read Of Dice and Men, The Story of Dungeons and Dragons and the People Who Play It. And I think that it is the best history of Dungeons and Dragons for people who aren't dyed-in-the-wool like grognards or, tabletop RPG nerds. David M. Ewalt does a really good job of introducing concepts that most D&D players would understand, but anyone outside of Dungeons and Dragons just are like, what does that even, I don't know what that means. AC? What is AC? What is a saving throw? Like what? And so he does this really good job of mixing not only the story of Dungeons and Dragons, but like the story of his Dungeons and Dragons campaign. And through each of those, just kind of gives you these little nuggets of tabletop RPG knowledge. But it's not boring for people like me who have read 10 to 15 histories of tabletop RPG books, and I've lost count of how many tabletop RPG core rule books I've read. So you would think I would get bored with this stuff, and some of it I did a little, but he's really good at moving on quickly, and the book is just very entertaining. I think that Of Dice and Men is the most realistic when it comes to attributing who did what in the creation of Dungeons and Dragons. I think that the book does a great job of giving Gary Gygax his due, also giving credit to Dave Arneson. And the thing about Arneson is like he had all these like pie in the sky ideas. Like he was like without a doubt the ideas man, but the problem is if you look at anything he's made outside of Dungeons and Dragons, like he didn't make anything, or he made very few things, and most of the time they're nonsensical. It's like he had the ideas and Gygax had the ability to put it to paper and expand on the ideas and make this crazy stuff that Arneson came up with coherent. Well, more coherent, because a lot of the stuff Gygax wrote was also incoherent if you look at like original D&D or even AD&D first edition. Some of the books either like vilify Arneson, or there's one book, I haven't read it, but it like basically says Arneson created it all and Gygax is a hack. And so it doesn't do that. I think it has like the perfect balance. Also, David Ewalt got to interview Lorraine Williams, and that's the only interview she's done for one of these History of D&D books. So if you want that information, then you've got to read this book. And the book is very, very good. I have a video where I review 3 different books on the history of D&D. I'll link that in the description. You should definitely check that out if you're interested in this stuff, because I kind of say the pros and cons of each one. And that video actually is what inspired me to reread Of Dice and Men. So definitely go check that out. I've read some more Glenn Cook. I read Dark War, and Dark War is a trilogy by Glenn Cook, and it is a science fantasy trilogy that has a lot of interesting things going on, but the problem is it doesn't feel like Glenn Cook. If you had told me someone else wrote this, I would have believed you. It doesn't have that like gut-wrenching, just these sharp sentences that Glenn Cook is so good at. It does have like the trauma that you experience reading some Glenn Cook. Like that starts way early in the book. This man is not afraid to go places. I'm saying book because I'm reading the omnibus. That's what's up here right now. And the book is interesting, and it should have just been a book. It's a trilogy, but it's like a 500-page trilogy, and it should have just been one big book. But back then they wanted little books. They're cheaper to make, and sell more of them because it's 3 books instead of one big book, that kind of thing. But book 1 and book 2 don't really have endings the way you would expect. So you need to read all 3. And I mean, luckily it's only 500 pages, so it's easy to do. The thing about them is there's like these humanoid like cat people are the people you're following, and like it's really interesting to see this different societal structure and to see Glenn Cook do something that's not fantasy. But the problem is I think in this experimentation with these novels, he didn't transfer his voice into it in the way you would expect from a Glenn Cook book. It always throws me off when I say Glenn Cook book. It's not a Cook book. It's not Glenn's cookbook. But what do I say? Glenn Cook novel? I guess I need to just always say novel after Cook. Anyways, Dark War is fine. I think other people would enjoy it a lot more than I did. I think that anyone who is interested in seeing Glenn Cook's abilities with a style of writing he doesn't normally do could appreciate this. And it does go places. So you're not going to be disappointed in it, but it just doesn't feel like Glenn Cook. Thanks to Carlos at StoryTube, I've read The Thin Man by Dashiell Hammett. Holy crap, that book is so good. I'm gonna give Carlos all the credit. He said the dialogue was outstanding, and it's like a masterclass in how to tell a story through dialogue, and it's totally true. The characters are great. There's no damsels in distress. This thing was written in 1933. It's just so good. Every character in it feels real. You feel like you're in 1933. And man, the main character has a drinking problem. I think he has a drinking problem because he's bored. I don't know if there's other books that follow this character that Dashiell Hammett has written. I'll find that out as I read more of his works. But man, this guy likes his booze. I think he's drinking as much as he is because he's not happy. At this point, it's like 7 years since he's retired from being a detective, and he just kind of gets thrown into this situation. And his wife is just like, hey, yeah, she keeps kind of pushing him into it and stuff. He married this woman who inherited a bunch of property and stuff, and like a lumber mill and all that. So he's bored to death because he's running these businesses, and I don't think that's his calling. I think he's just drinking away the time. But anyways, that's like such a small part of this entire story, and dang, the mystery was good. I mean, this guy helped create the detective noir genre, pretty much the OG. And you can't even tell. Sometimes when you see the prototypical genre novel, you're just like, this is okay, man, all these tropes are like awful. And then you're like, well, that's where the tropes came from. It had to start somewhere, and it started here. But even knowing that this has a bunch of those tropes, they feel fresh, which is just crazy to say for a book that's 91 years old. So yeah, The Thin Man by Dashiell Hammett. Definitely check that out. Another thing to give Carlos credit for, Terminal Boredom by Izumi Suzuki. It's a collection of short stories. Izumi Suzuki was like a cult figure in Japan. Like, I didn't know what they were. Carlos shared in the book group I'm in with him, hey, this book's really cool. These short stories are crazy, and they are crazy. They're very, very good. Some of them are just like spot on for the type of thing you would expect from like Black Mirror or something. And these were written in like the 80s. And she has like a tragic story with her life. Y'all should go check it out. The book is just trippy as hell. I didn't like it as much as I thought I would going in, but even the stories that I wasn't the biggest fan of because they were just pretty boring had these concepts that I just keep thinking about. Like there's this one where this person, I'm pretty sure they're a sociopath. They have the consciousness of another person put into their brain, and when they're sleeping, that consciousness wakes up and is able to experience things when this person is sleeping, and then this person, when they're awake, it's starting to affect their personality. And then like there's this other one where almost all men are just gone. They're like an endangered species and the world is all women, and it's really, really weird stuff. But man, when it's good, it's really good. And even the bad stuff has very interesting concepts. And the last book I read this month is Book of the Month, only because Red Rising is Series of the Month, because I read the entire trilogy, and yes, it counted as a trilogy before it became like a big thing. So I'm counting the original trilogy as a series, and then the other books as like a different thing. And I'm allowed to do that because my channel's my rules. My book of the month is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I am so glad I finally got back to reading a book by Emily Henry. She is one of my favorite new writers. She might be my favorite writer from the last 5 years, like that has started publishing adult novels in the last 5 years. I'm adding a lot of qualifiers because she wrote young adult stuff before she wrote these wonderful romance novels. I don't even think she should be pigeonholed into romance. Like, yes, these follow kind of the beats of a romance novel, but Happy Place is just a flat out good book. Doesn't have to be called romance. Yes, there's a romance in it, but man, the way she writes people and the way she writes feelings and experiences and how they affect you as a person is just unparalleled. I mean, she knows what she is doing, and Happy Place is so good. The premise of Happy Place is the main character shows up to a vacation, and this is 5 months after her and her fiance have broken it off, and her fiance is there, and she has to pretend that she's still with him because they haven't told their friend group. And so it's going to be a week of her trying to deal with this and their like resentment toward one another and this unsolved problems between each other. And you see the cracks early on, and the cracks go beyond just their relationship. And I think that this book is going to be even better on a reread, because I was picking up clues and I felt really good about myself because I was like, wait, those two, they're going to have words. Like, this is going to blow up by the end of the book. And so I'm going to get to see all these microaggressions and all these little things that build up to the ending. And man, what an ending. Everything. It's so good. Everyone should read Happy Place. I loved Funny Story by Emily Henry. Happy Place is better. Happy Place is so good. But yeah, that's what I've read this month. It was 11 books. This was a much better month for reading than I thought. And I want to mention some DNFs, okay? I am not a fan of Elmore Leonard. I tried Ombre and Valdez is Coming. It was like a little 2-book thing. And man, I read the first 10 pages of Valdez is Coming, and I was like, what the hell is this? I hated the dialogue. I hated the way the story was written. I had to read it twice because those 10 pages were incoherent, and it wasn't that I was like sleep deprived or something. I just could not gel with it at all. The sentence structure, nothing. And then I did the same thing with Ombre, and I don't remember which one it was, but he used the same word. I think it was like blackbird or something. He used the same word like 20 times on the same page, and I was like, what the hell is this? This is so bad. Now, I know that a lot of people love his writing. It does not work for me at all. And I think that's a lesson that a lot of people should really think about, is sometimes writers just don't work for you. Like, it will not go into your brain. It just refuses. It's either the way they tell stories or the way they structure sentences or just their themes your brain does not want. The better you get at recognizing that early, the more you will enjoy your reading time. Because I do not have time to grind out a book that I can't remember after I'm done reading it. It just seems counterproductive to force myself through something that just doesn't want to be in my brain. I know you got to challenge yourself with books, which I do, but I have to get something out of a challenge. I'm not hitting the gym just to stay scrawny. Like, I don't want to be scrawny. Why would I lift weights and just stay small? What's the point of that? The goal is gains. And with books, the goal is mental gains and entertainment. And if a book is not entertaining and I can't remember a damn thing from it when I stop reading it other than my frustration, then, I'm not going to keep reading it. Yeah, there's my DNF rant. When it comes to TBR, I've already started my July readings. I started A Song for Our Bond, and the book is very good. I can understand why people love Guy Gavriel Kay as much as they do. I'm enjoying it. I don't think I'm enjoying it as much as other people do. I can see the pieces in the storytelling that blow people away, but I don't know if it's the thing that blows me away. He does have a lot of stuff in the storytelling that I really, really enjoy, and I am definitely going to read more Guy Gavriel Kay after this. I'm about 75% of the way through A Song for Our Bond, and it's very good. And I just keep thinking, why is he not more popular? Like, he's popular on BookTube, but if I ask any normal fantasy enjoyer who Guy Gavriel Kay is, they'll be like, who? But if I ask any booktubers, they'll be like, you mean the one that helped complete the Silmarillion? So there's this huge gap between casual readers and booktube readers when it comes to Guy Gavriel Kay, which just drives me nuts. I'm not even a huge GGK fan, but man, what is happening? Same thing with adaptations to TV shows. A Song for Our Bond would be the greatest single season of television ever. It would just be a mini series like Shogun, which I think has a second season coming now, but whatever. Why is Guy Gavriel Kay's intellectual property not being mined for television? I'm not even the biggest television fan, but holy crap, it's a gold mine. And I'm also going to read Lonesome Dove. I'm reading that with a ton of other booktubers, so that's going to be a lot of fun. I didn't get to it in June on the range. Had a lot going on. That's a big old book. I talked about it at the beginning of the month, but I'm doing it this month. July is the month for Lonesome Dove. And then after that, I don't know. I'm gonna read some more Glenn Cook. I'm almost done with a Garrett P.I. novel. It's very good. It's Angry Lead Skies. And other than that, maybe I'll read Sung in Blood, because Sung in Blood and A Matter of Time are the last two Glenn Cook books. I did it again. That I need to read, and I'll be done with his standalones. And other than that, I'm not sure what I'm going to read. But June was an amazing month. If you want to check out my mid-year freakout video, I just put that out last week. I want to thank you for watching. And with that, I'll see you next time.